The Galactic Empire, a mighty interstellar civilization that had long since conquered and subjugated countless worlds, set its sights on a small, unassuming planet called Earth. For the imperial leadership, this was merely a formality, a primitive species ripe for assimilation into the grand tapestry of the Empire's dominion. With their immense technological superiority and the sheer size of their military forces, the Imperials were certain that bringing this backward world into the fold would be an effortless task. What they did not anticipate, however, was the tenacity and ingenuity of the human race. As the Imperial fleet arrived at Earth, they were met with a surprising sight. Instead of the expected displays of surrender and submission, the humans had marshaled their limited resources and developed advanced defense systems and weaponry. The planet's military forces, led by their most brilliant scientific minds, stood ready to meet the Imperial onslaught. The first skirmishes caught the Imperials off guard. Their armored vehicles and powerful energy weapons were countered by the humans' clever adaptations, nullifying the technological advantages the Empire had long taken for granted. Shock waves rippled through the Imperial command as reports of staggering losses began to trickle in. Perplexed by this unexpected resistance, the Imperial leaders convened hastily to devise a new strategy. They could not fathom how these primitives had managed to mount such a formidable defense. Surely their superiority in numbers and firepower would eventually overwhelm the human forces, no matter how resourceful they might be. With renewed determination, the Imperials redoubled their efforts, sending in wave after wave of ground troops and orbital bombardments. But the humans, driven by a fierce determination to protect their home, continued to devise new tactics and countermeasures, evening the odds against the mighty Galactic Empire. As the battle raged on, it became clear that the Imperials had greatly underestimated the resilience and adaptability of the human race. This was no longer a simple conquest, but the opening salvo of a conflict that would shake the very foundations of the Galactic Empire's dominance. The Imperial fleet, brimming with confidence, descended upon the planet Earth, fully expecting a swift and decisive victory. Their advanced warships, armed with devastating energy weapons and legions of battle-hardened soldiers, were poised to overwhelm the primitive human defenses. However, as the first wave of Imperial troops set foot on the alien soil, they were met with a hail of gunfire and explosions that caught them completely off guard. The human militaries, having prepared for this eventuality, had strategically positioned their forces and unleashed a barrage of high-tech projectile weapons and explosives. Caught by surprise, the Imperial soldiers struggled to adapt to the humans' unorthodox tactics. Their energy shields and personal armor proved ineffective against the sheer volume and accuracy of the human firepower. Confusion and panic began to spread through the Imperial ranks as their advance ground to a halt. Determined to regain the initiative, the Imperial commanders ordered the deployment of their most formidable weapons. Hulking battle tanks, armed with plasma cannons and missile launchers, rumbled onto the battlefield, unleashing a devastating salvo upon the human positions. The ground shook as the powerful energy blasts carved through the human defenses, sending plumes of smoke and debris into the air. Yet, to the Imperials' growing frustration, the humans did not falter. They had anticipated the escalation and had prepared countermeasures, including advanced anti-armor weaponry and mobile defense systems. The human forces, led by their most brilliant military strategists, maneuvered with agility and precision, targeting the Imperial vehicles' weak points and neutralizing them one by one. As the battle raged on, the Imperials continued to unleash their full might, deploying wave after wave of reinforcements and employing even more devastating weapons. But the humans, fueled by a fierce determination to protect their home, refused to back down. They adapted their tactics, leveraging the terrain and their intimate knowledge of the local environment to their advantage. Slowly but surely, the tide of the battle began to turn. The Imperials, unaccustomed to facing such a tenacious and resourceful opponent, found themselves struggling to maintain their momentum. Casualties mounted on both sides, but the humans, driven by a united purpose, refused to be broken. The Galactic Empire, for the first time in its long history of conquest, was faced with the prospect of a prolonged and costly conflict against a civilization they had once deemed insignificant. The arrogance that had once fueled their advance was now tempered by a growing sense of unease, as they realized that the humans were proving to be a far more formidable adversary than they had ever imagined. As the bloody conflict between the Galactic Empire and the human forces raged on, a shift in momentum began to take shape. The initial shock of the Imperial invasion had worn off, and the humans, buoyed by their unexpected success, started to gain the upper hand. Driven by their remarkable adaptability and innovative spirit, the human commanders studied the Imperial tactics and technology, looking for vulnerabilities to exploit. Gradually, they were able to reverse engineer captured Imperial weapons and devices, using this newfound knowledge to bolster their own defenses and develop countermeasures. One of the key breakthroughs came when the humans managed to hijack the communication frequencies used by the Imperial troops. By intercepting and decrypting these transmissions, they were able to anticipate the Empire's movements and deployment of forces, allowing them to set up ambushes and coordinate their own attacks with precision. The human scientists, working around the clock, also made significant strides in understanding the underlying principles of the Imperial technology. They discovered weaknesses in the energy shielding systems and found ways to disrupt the functionality of the Imperial's advanced warships and vehicles. Emboldened by these successes, the human forces began to launch bold counteroffensives, targeting the Imperial supply lines and logistics hubs. The disruption of the Empire's support infrastructure slowly but surely began to take a toll on their ability to maintain the momentum of their invasion. As the battle raged on, the humans continued to devise increasingly innovative and unconventional tactics. They employed advanced electronic warfare techniques to jam the Imperial communications and sensor arrays, sowing confusion and chaos within the enemy ranks. Special operations teams infiltrated deep behind the Imperial lines, sabotaging critical facilities and disrupting the flow of reinforcements. The Galactic Empire, accustomed to swift and decisive victories, found itself increasingly frustrated by the humans' resilience and adaptability. Their overwhelming technological superiority, which had served them so well in past conquests, was now being challenged by the sheer ingenuity and determination of their adversaries. Faced with the prospect of a prolonged and costly conflict, the Imperial commanders began to reevaluate their strategies. They realized that the humans, far from being the primitive and easily subjugated species they had expected, were proving to be a formidable foe worthy of their respect. As the tide of the battle continued to turn in the humans' favor, the Galactic Empire found itself in an unfamiliar and unsettling position, one where victory was no longer a foregone conclusion, and the specter of defeat loomed large on the horizon. The Galactic Empire, stung by the unexpected resilience and tenacity of the human forces, could no longer afford to underestimate their adversaries. Faced with the prospect of a prolonged and costly conflict, the Imperial leadership made the decision to mobilize its full might in a desperate bid to crush the human resistance once and for all. From the depths of their vast military reserves, the Imperials summoned their most elite and battle-hardened units. Legions of seasoned shock troops, equipped with the latest in advanced weaponry and armor, were deployed to the human homeworld, ready to overwhelm the enemy with sheer brute force. Accompanying these elite infantry formations were the Galactic Empire's most powerful and devastating weapons of war. Massive, lumbering assault mechs, armed with devastating plasma cannons and missile batteries, rumbled across the scared battlefields, their footsteps shaking the very ground. Armored hover tanks, bristling with energy guns and reactive armor, provided mobile firepower to support the advancing troops. In the skies above, the Imperial fleet unleashed a devastating barrage of orbital bombardment, raining down torrents of energy beams and incendiary ordnance upon the human defenses. Entire cities were reduced to rubble, the smoke and flames visible for miles, as the Imperials sought to break the will of the human resistance. The human forces, battered and outmatched, fought with the desperation of those defending their homes and loved ones. They deployed every tactic and weapon at their disposal, from shoulder-fired anti-armor rockets to ingenious improvised explosive devices, in a desperate attempt to hold back the Imperial onslaught. But the sheer scale and ferocity of the Imperial assault proved to be overwhelming. The human militaries, despite their recent successes, were simply unable to match the raw firepower and resources that the Galactic Empire had committed to this conflict. Casualties mounted, and the human defenses began to crumble under the relentless pressure. As the battle reached a critical juncture, the human commanders realized that they were facing the very real prospect of total defeat. The Imperials had brought the full weight of their military might to bear, and the humans, for all their ingenuity and courage, were now teetering on the edge of annihilation. In the face of this dire situation, the human resistance was forced to regroup and reevaluate their strategies. They knew that they could not afford to lose this war, for the future of their entire civilization hung in the balance. The stakes had never been higher, and they were determined to find a way to turn the tide of the battle once again. Faced with the prospect of total annihilation, the human resistance knew that they could no longer rely solely on conventional military tactics to hold back the might of the Galactic Empire. They had to devise new and unconventional strategies if they were to have any hope of turning the tide of the battle. Across the globe, the disparate human nations and factions put aside their differences and came together in an unprecedented display of unity. Scientists, engineers, and military strategists pooled their knowledge and resources, determined to find innovative ways to counter the Imperial onslaught. In secret laboratories and hidden facilities, the human resistance worked tirelessly to reverse engineer captured Imperial technology and develop countermeasures. They studied the weaknesses and vulnerabilities of the enemy's advanced weaponry, finding creative ways to disrupt and disable them. One breakthrough came in the form of a new type of energy-dampening device, designed to temporarily neutralize the powerful energy shields that protected the Imperial vehicles and infantry. Armed with these specialized devices, the human forces were able to penetrate the enemy's defenses and strike at their vulnerable components. Another critical development was the creation of a network of autonomous drones and robotic platforms, programmed with advanced targeting algorithms and tactical subroutines. These unmanned systems, equipped with a diverse array of weapons and sensors, could maneuver quickly and strike with precision, overwhelming the slower-moving Imperial forces. The humans also leveraged their creativity and outside-the-box thinking to devise unconventional tactics and weaponry. Ingenious traps, filled with explosives and electromagnetic pulse devices, were set up to ambush the unsuspecting Imperial troops. Specialized jamming and electronic warfare systems disrupted the enemy's communications and targeting systems, sowing chaos and confusion in their ranks. As the battle raged on, the human resistance continued to adapt and innovate, constantly staying one step ahead of the Galactic Empire's attempts to counter their tactics. The Imperials, accustomed to the predictable and methodical nature of their previous conquests, found themselves increasingly frustrated and bewildered by the unpredictable and unorthodox methods employed by their human adversaries. The sheer creativity and resourcefulness of the human resistance began to take a heavy toll on the Imperial forces. Their superior numbers and advanced technology were no longer enough to guarantee victory, as the Imperials struggled to keep up with the rapidly evolving human strategies. With each passing day, the human resistance grew stronger, more coordinated, and more determined to break the grip of the Galactic Empire. The once arrogant invaders were now faced with the unsettling realization that their conquest of this primitive species was far from assured. As the prolonged conflict between the Galactic Empire and the human resistance dragged on, the toll on the Imperial forces began to mount. What had started as a seemingly effortless conquest had transformed into a grueling and costly campaign that showed no signs of ending. The human forces, buoyed by their newfound unity and fueled by a fierce determination to protect their home, continued to adapt and evolve their tactics, constantly keeping the Imperials off balance. The sheer ingenuity and resourcefulness of their adversaries confounded the Imperial commanders, who had grown accustomed to the predictable nature of their past victories. Casualties among the Imperial troops steadily climbed, and the strain on the Empire's resources became increasingly apparent. Entire divisions were decimated, and the flow of reinforcements and supplies struggled to keep pace with the demands of the protracted conflict. Moreover, the prolonged nature of the war began to take a toll on the morale and public opinion within the Galactic Empire itself. Citizens, who had once unquestioningly supported the Imperial conquest, grew increasingly uneasy as the reports of heavy losses and the seemingly endless nature of the conflict filtered back home. The Imperial leadership, faced with the prospect of a drawn-out and potentially disastrous campaign, found themselves in an unfamiliar and unsettling position. Their confidence in the inevitability of their victory had been shaken, and they were forced to confront the possibility that they might have underestimated the human race. Discussions within the Imperial High Command grew heated as factions emerged with differing views on how to proceed. Some advocated for doubling down on the military might, believing that the application of even greater force would eventually break the human resistance. Others, however, argued for a more cautious and diplomatic approach, suggesting that a negotiated settlement might be the only way to extricate the Empire from the quagmire they had found themselves in. The Emperor himself, once so resolute in his conviction of the Empire's superiority, now found himself grappling with the harsh realities of the situation. The cost, both in terms of lives and resources, was beginning to outweigh the perceived benefits of subjugating the human homeworld. As the deliberations continued, a growing sense of unease permeated the halls of power within the Galactic Empire. The once unthinkable prospect of negotiating with the primitive humans was now being seriously considered, a testament to the remarkable resilience and adaptability of the human resistance. The future of the conflict hung in the balance, as the Galactic Empire found itself facing a dilemma that threatened to undermine the very foundations of its long-standing dominance over the galaxy. As the war between the Galactic Empire and the human resistance reached a critical juncture, both sides knew that the outcome of the next decisive battle would likely determine the fate of the conflict. The Imperial forces, stunned by their unexpected struggles, had massed their most powerful assets for a final devastating push to break the human defenses. On the other hand, the human resistance, backed into a corner, had left nothing to chance. They had spent months meticulously planning and preparing for this moment, leveraging every ounce of their ingenuity and technical prowess to devise a last-ditch gambit that they hoped would turn the tide of the battle. The two titanic forces clashed on a sprawling battlefield, with the fate of their entire civilizations hanging in the balance. The ground shook as the Imperial war machines, bristling with advanced weapons, unleashed a firestorm of destruction upon the human positions. Massive energy beams and rockets tore through the air, obliterating everything in their path. Yet, the human resistance refused to be cowed. They had anticipated the Imperial onslaught and had prepared accordingly. Concealed emplacements and mobile weapon platforms emerged from their hiding places, unleashing a devastating barrage of high-tech projectiles and guided munitions. Precision-guided missiles streaked through the sky, targeting the weak points of the Imperial vehicles and warships. As the battle raged on, the human forces continued to demonstrate their remarkable adaptability and resourcefulness. They deployed a series of ingenious countermeasures, from electromagnetic pulse devices that disabled the enemy's systems to advanced camouflage and decoy systems that sowed confusion among the Imperial ranks. Caught off guard by the sheer ferocity and ingenuity of the human resistance, the Imperial commanders struggled to maintain their momentum. Their seemingly unstoppable advance began to falter as their forces found themselves outmaneuvered and outmatched by their determined adversaries. In a dramatic turn of events, the human resistance unleashed its most devastating weapons, shocking the Galactic Empire with the sheer magnitude of their technological prowess. Massive energy beams, capable of penetrating even the thickest Imperial armor, carved swaths of destruction through the enemy formations. Powerful explosives, cleverly concealed and triggered remotely, shattered the ground beneath the Imperial war machines, sending them tumbling into oblivion. Faced with the onslaught of these devastating attacks, the Imperial forces found themselves in a desperate struggle for survival. Their once overwhelming advantages in numbers and firepower had been neutralized, and they were now the ones fighting for their lives against a relentless and unyielding human resistance. As the battle reached its climax, the Galactic Empire, for the first time in its long history of conquest, was forced to make the unthinkable decision to retreat. The human resistance had proven itself to be a foe worthy of the Empire's respect, and the cost of continuing the fight had become too high to bear. The retreat of the Galactic Empire's forces from the human homeworld sent shockwaves throughout the vast interstellar civilization. For the first time in its storied history, the mighty Imperial war machine had been forced to withdraw in the face of a determined and resourceful adversary. The news of the Empire's defeat spread rapidly, igniting a range of emotions and reactions among its citizens. Shock and disbelief gave way to a growing sense of unease as the realization sank in that the invincible power of the Galactic Empire was not as absolute as they had been led to believe. Within the Imperial High Command, the aftermath of the conflict was a time of intense soul-searching and recrimination. Commanders who had once boasted of the inevitability of their victory now found themselves facing harsh scrutiny and questioning from their superiors. The Emperor himself, once so confident in the Empire's superiority, was forced to grapple with the humbling reality of their defeat. He convened a council of his most trusted advisors, demanding answers and a clear path forward. As the Imperial leadership deliberated, the human resistance, battered but triumphant, turned its attention to the daunting task of rebuilding and securing their hard-won victory. The global cooperation that had been forged in the crucible of war now had to be translated into a lasting peace, with the humans navigating the complex web of interstellar politics and diplomacy. The human scientists and engineers, who had played such a pivotal role in the conflict, now found themselves in high demand, as the Galactic Empire sought to understand the secrets of the advanced technologies that had enabled the human resistance's success. Embassies and research exchanges were established, with both sides cautiously exploring the possibilities of future collaboration. Yet beneath the surface, an undercurrent of unease and uncertainty lingered. The Galactic Empire, humbled by its defeat, was forced to confront the unsettling prospect that the human race was not the easily subjugated species they had once believed. The implications of this realization would resonate for years to come, as the balance of power in the galaxy began to shift. For the humans, the victory was bittersweet. They had proven their worth on the galactic stage, but the cost had been high, and the future remained uncertain. The specter of the Galactic Empire's return loomed large, and the human resistance knew that they could not afford to let their guard down, lest they risk losing everything they had fought so hard to protect. As the dust settled and the reverberations of the conflict echoed through the stars, both the Galactic Empire and the human civilization found themselves forever changed, their relationship forever altered by the events that had unfolded. The historic conflict between the Galactic Empire and the human civilization had forever etched its place in the annals of galactic history. The tale of the first war with humans would be passed down through generations, a legendary story that would shape the perceptions and attitudes of both civilizations for years to come. For the Galactic Empire, the humbling defeat at the hands of the primitive human race had shaken the very foundations of their long-held beliefs about their own superiority. The arrogance that had once fueled their relentless expansion across the stars had been tempered by a newfound respect and a realization that the galaxy held far more mysteries and challenges than they had ever imagined. The Imperial leadership, once so confident in their ability to subjugate any civilization that stood in their path, now found themselves grappling with the reality that the human resistance had proven to be a formidable adversary. The technological advancements and innovative tactics employed by the humans had left the Empire's commanders in awe, and they knew that they could no longer afford to underestimate their galactic neighbors. In the aftermath of the conflict, the Galactic Empire embarked on a series of sweeping reforms, both within its military and its diplomatic corps. New protocols were established to better understand and engage with other sentient species, with a renewed emphasis on cultural exchange and mutual understanding. The Empire's researchers and scientists worked tirelessly to unravel the secrets of the human technologies that had proven so effective in the war. They sought to replicate and even surpass the capabilities of the human resistance, driven by a newfound sense of both respect and caution. Meanwhile, the human civilization, having emerged victorious from the harrowing ordeal, found itself thrust into the galactic spotlight. The story of their triumph against the overwhelming odds of the galactic empires might become a source of immense pride and inspiration for the entire human race. The human leaders, cognizant of the precarious nature of their position, worked to establish diplomatic and economic ties with the broader galactic community. They sought to position their civilization as a reliable and valuable partner, one that could offer unique perspectives and innovative solutions to the challenges faced by the galaxy at large. Over time, the legacy of the First War with humans began to shape the future interactions between the Galactic Empire and the human civilization. The once arrogant imperial forces now approached their dealings with the humans with a greater degree of caution and respect, mindful of the unexpected capabilities that had been demonstrated on the battlefield. The human resistance, in turn, remained vigilant, knowing that the Galactic Empire's retreat did not necessarily signal the end of the conflict. They continued to invest in their military and scientific capabilities, determined to maintain the edge that had secured their remarkable victory. As the years passed, the ripple effects of the war continued to reverberate throughout the galaxy. The balance of power had shifted, and the Galactic Empire found itself facing a new reality, one in which the human civilization had emerged as a force to be reckoned with, a testament to the indomitable spirit and unwavering determination of a species that had once been underestimated and dismissed.